at first glance. This might be one of the least impressive animals on Earth. Brown, round, sitting on a rock like a potato someone forgot to pick up. Then, it screams. And that's when things start getting weird. Because this isn't a rodent. Its closest relatives include animals you would never expect. Its feet work in a way most mammals don't. It sometimes behaves more like a reptile, and one disgusting habit has become surprisingly valuable to scientists. This is the Hyrax, and behind that completely ordinary face is an animal that makes less sense the more you learn about it. Look at this animal for 5 seconds, and your brain makes an immediate decision. Rodent. Maybe an oversized guinea pig. Maybe a groundhog that took a wrong turn. Reasonable guesses. And completely wrong. Because on the evolutionary family tree, the Hyrax belongs to a group called Afrotheria, alongside animals that look almost nothing like it, and among its relatives are elephants and manatees. Yes, this potato-shaped creature sitting on a rock shares ancestry with some of the largest mammals on Earth.
The difference.
For a long time, that relationship wasn't obvious. But once scientists were able to examine genetic evidence, the family tree became much clearer. And strangely enough, the clues weren't only hidden in DNA. Look closely at the Hyrax's feet. Its nails can appear almost hoof-like. Then look inside its mouth. Those sharp front teeth aren't just another set of rodent-style incisors. They are tusk-like teeth, with males typically having larger, sharper ones than females. Suddenly, the elephant comparison doesn't sound quite as ridiculous. But don't expect a miniature elephant. Evolution took the Hyrax down a very different road. Because while an elephant dominates the ground through sheer size, the Hyrax survives by doing something its enormous relatives aren't exactly famous for. It climbs. And when you see how its feet accomplish that, this strange little animal becomes even harder to explain. Now watch a Hyrax move. For an animal shaped like a loaf of bread, it is surprisingly good on rocks. It scrambles across steep surfaces, squeezes between narrow cracks, and disappears into places where that round little body looks like it has no business going. The secret is underneath it. A Hyrax's feet aren't ordinary mammal feet. The soles are soft, rubbery, and kept moist by sweat glands. That moisture helps create extra grip against the rock, giving the animal impressive traction as it moves through its rugged home. It's a beautifully simple survival tool. No giant claws, no elaborate climbing equipment, just small, damp feet underneath what looks like a very badly designed climber. And the rocks aren't merely a playground. They're protection. When danger appears, a Hyrax can race toward cracks and shelters where larger predators have a much harder time following. So that ridiculous body suddenly starts making sense. Low to the ground, compact, quick enough to vanish between stones, but those sweaty feet come with another strange clue, because Hyraxes don't regulate their body temperature quite like many other mammals. And if you visit a colony at the right time, you may find them stretched across the rocks doing something that looks much more appropriate for a lizard. They're waiting for the sun. Morning arrives over the rocks, and instead of immediately searching for food, the Hyrax may simply sit there, sometimes alone, sometimes packed beside others, facing the warmth like a row of furry solar panels. It looks lazy, but this is survival. Hyraxes aren't as efficient at regulating their body temperature as many mammals. Their body temperature can fluctuate more with the environment, so basking in the sun helps them warm up, which creates another ridiculous contradiction. This is a furry mammal, related to elephants, with sweaty feet, behaving like something you'd expect to see in a reptile enclosure. And when temperatures change, Hyraxes can also conserve warmth by sheltering among rocks and huddling close together. So those rocky homes do more than hide them from predators. They become part of the animal's temperature control strategy. But while a group of Hyraxes warming themselves in the morning sun may look peaceful, someone still has to pay attention. because these rocks are shared with predators. And when one hyrax spots trouble, peace can disappear in an instant. One animal raises the alarm, the colony reacts, and suddenly that bizarre scream the internet turned into a joke starts sounding much less ridiculous, because to another hyrax, it could mean one thing: run. Then you hear it. A sharp cry tears across the rocks. For humans, it can sound almost absurd, like an animal far too small for the amount of noise coming out of it. But to a hyrax colony, that sound can carry information that matters. Some of their calls function as alarms, warning nearby animals when danger approaches. One moment, the colony is resting. The next, bodies rush toward cracks and shelters in the rock. The internet hears a screaming potato. Other hyraxes hear, something is coming. But warning calls are only part of their vocal world. Hyraxes can also produce surprisingly complex sequences containing different sounds, including wails, chucks, and snorts, and males can combine vocal elements into songs. Researchers have found that features of those songs can carry information about the singer's condition. So that ridiculous noise isn't necessarily random at all. A male may be advertising himself, a lookout may be warning the group, and animals scattered across the rocks may be communicating without ever needing to stand beside one another. If you're enjoying discovering animals that become stranger the closer you look, subscribe to Wild Unknown, because we've reached the halfway point, and the hyrax still has one secret we're deliberately saving for later. But first, look at the colony again. It may seem like a chaotic pile of furry bodies. Watch long enough, and you'll realize there's structure hiding inside the chaos. From a distance, a hyrax colony can look like chaos. Dozens of round bodies scattered across the rocks, some eating, some basking, some apparently doing absolutely nothing. But stay long enough, and a social system begins to appear. Rock hyraxes can live in sizable groups, with typical colonies of around 30 individuals, though larger groups can occur. Within them, breeding groups may center around a territorial male and multiple females. And life in a colony comes with an obvious advantage: more eyes. While some animals feed or rest, danger can be detected and warnings can spread through the group. That matters when your neighbors include predators capable of turning one distracted hyrax into lunch. But here's where the family gets even stranger. Not every hyrax lives this way. Tree hyraxes take almost the opposite approach. Instead of crowded rocky colonies, they tend toward a more solitary life among branches. And instead of spending their days basking in the sun, they're largely active at night. Same strange family, completely different lifestyles. Yet hyraxes share something humans noticed long before modern biology understood what these animals really were. Long before DNA, long before TikTok, long before anyone called them screaming potatoes. People were already writing about them. And to find that story, we have to go back thousands of years. TikTok didn't discover the hyrax, not even close. Long before viral videos turned this strange little animal into a screaming internet celebrity, humans had already noticed something unusual about it. Hyraxes appear in ancient biblical writings, where rock-dwelling animals are described as small creatures that make their homes among the cliffs, and that description captures something remarkably important about their survival. A hyrax doesn't need to be powerful. It doesn't need enormous horns. It doesn't need to outrun everything chasing it. It needs to know the rocks. The same cliffs that warm its body can become shelter. The same cracks it moves through every day can become escape routes when danger appears. And that routine matters, because hyraxes can repeatedly use familiar paths, resting places, and certain other locations for generations. For a very, very long time. And this is where our story takes its strangest turn. Because one place hyraxes repeatedly return to isn't where they sleep. It isn't where they hide. And it isn't where they raise their young. It's where they go. To the bathroom. That sounds like the least important thing we've learned about them. But in some places, what generations of Hyraxes left behind has accumulated for thousands of years. Layer after layer after layer. And scientists discovered something hidden inside it. Something capable of preserving clues about environments that existed long before any human alive today was born. The disgusting secret from the beginning? We're finally ready to open it. It starts with something incredibly ordinary. A Hyrax needs to go to the bathroom, so it returns to a familiar spot. Then another Hyrax does the same, and another. Generation after generation, until that bathroom is no longer just a bathroom. It becomes a time capsule. Hyraxes can repeatedly use communal waste sites known as middens, allowing material to accumulate over extremely long periods. And their urine adds an especially strange ingredient. As it builds up and dries, it can form a dark, layered substance known as Hyraceum. Now imagine those layers forming year after year. Dust arrives, pollen arrives, tiny pieces of plants become trapped. The surrounding environment leaves traces behind, and the Hyrax seals some of that history into the growing deposit. In dry regions, where ancient organic material can be difficult to preserve, these middens can become surprisingly valuable. Scientists can examine their layers for clues about vegetation and environmental conditions from the past. So think about where we started. A brown animal sitting on a rock, easy to overlook, easy to laugh at. Yet generations of these little mammals have unintentionally been building something humans can later use to investigate how environments changed through time. No monument, no fossilized skeleton required, just thousands of years of animals returning to the same place and doing exactly what animals do. That's the secret we've been saving since the beginning. The Hyrax didn't just survive history. In one of the strangest ways imaginable, it helped preserve pieces of it. And suddenly, that screaming little potato doesn't seem ordinary at all. So maybe the Hyrax isn't ridiculous after all. It looks ordinary, small, brown, almost forgettable. But beneath that simple appearance is an animal tied to elephants, equipped for life on stone, capable of filling cliffs with its voice, and strange enough to leave behind environmental records simply by going to the bathroom. The Hyrax reminds us of something important. Nature doesn't always hide its greatest surprises inside the biggest, fastest, or most dangerous animals. Sometimes, they're sitting quietly on a rock. So tell us, what's one strange animal you want Wild Unknown to investigate next? And subscribe if you want to keep looking beyond appearances. Because in nature, the ordinary is often only ordinary until you look closer.